We're talking about the determinants of demand, also called the shift parameters. These are those variables that change demand, that will cause the demand curve to shift. So as we can see in the graph below, the determinants of demand would cause either demand to increase, say in a movement from D0 to D1, that would be an increase in demand. That's an increase. Or conversely, from D0 to D2, that would be a decrease, a leftward shift in demand. So the shift parameters, the determinants of demand, are variables that change demand. One very important determinant of demand is income. Changes in income can cause demand to increase or decrease. So let's consider a thought experiment here. Suppose that your income suddenly doubled. What sort of things would you buy? What sort of things would you consume more of? Well, you might go out and purchase a new home. You might buy a new car. You might update your wardrobe. You might get some new clothes. You may enjoy a fancy meal, steak, lobster, sushi, whatever sort of food you enjoy. These are all things that if your income were to suddenly increase, you would purchase more of these goods. We call these type of goods normal goods. Normal goods. A normal good, don't let the word normal confuse you. It doesn't mean ordinary or standard. A normal good is simply a good or a service for which an increase in income causes consumers to demand more of the good, or conversely, a good or service for which a decrease in income causes consumers to demand less of the good, holding everything else constant. So all of these goods that we've listed here, the new home, new car, new clothes, fancy food, these are all normal goods. If your income were to increase, your demand for these goods would also increase. Now consider the alternative. Are there any goods that, if your income were to double, goods that you would actually buy less of those goods? Well, I'm sure there are. There are goods, for example, wall unit air conditioners, rental housing, if your income increased, you would probably shift toward home ownership rather than renting a home. Certain types of foods, like maybe hot dogs, ramen noodles, Spam, canned meat. These are all goods that if your income were to increase, your demand for these goods would fall. We call these types of goods inferior goods. Inferior goods, a good or service for which an increase in income causes consumers to demand less of the good, holding everything else constant. So these are goods for which your demand responds negatively to changes in income. Now let me just caution you to be careful about this word inferior. Inferior does not necessarily mean low quality. It does not necessarily mean something that is below standard. All of this depends upon individuals' preferences. What might be a normal good for me could very well be an inferior good for you. But nonetheless, income is a very important determinant of demand, but we must be careful that we specify, we differentiate between normal and inferior goods.